and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to all, and good evening to you as well, Asaf.
Hello, Mutlu, and hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Today, Mutlu is with us, as you can see, and Gilad couldn't make it today. He sends his best. And today we're going to have a special Q&A lesson, or session, if you will. And we're going to have a Q&A session actually today, and we're going to have one next week as well. The two last lessons of this semester are going to be dedicated to your questions. So we'll start with questions that we already received through emails and through the Facebook group, and questions that have been repeating themselves throughout the semester. We'll try to kind of cover, the things that really bugged you, or the things that really, still aren't kind of really well finalized for you, and it's you're welcome to always keep flooding us with more questions, and again, these lessons are really for you guys, to really cover everything you want to cover. You can ask about anything at all. There's no specific topic that you have to focus on. Anything that you really always wanted to ask and didn't find the opportunity. So before we start, maybe I'll just kind of read a few of the places as usual, as we do usually. Places from where we have Points in the Hearts connected to us right now. So we have Points in the Hearts in Canada, as well as in Iowa, and in New York, and in Dallas, and Colorado Springs, and Arizona, and Michigan, and Florida, and the UK, and Houston, and Indonesia, and Nova Scotia, and Washington, and Albuquerque, and Indiana, and lots more places. It seems that everyone is ready, so let's just start.
Right, with all the people from around the world, should be a nice little tea party.
Yeah.
So you shoot us off and we'll try to nail them. Okay,
so we have this question from Enrique Ruiz, which I chose as kind of a first question because he kind of summarizes the semester as well with that question. So he says, in this fundamentals course, I've learned a lot of technical aspects about reality, and I have a much clearer understanding about many things that were only intuitions before I came to this study. I understand our limited perception of reality, and how we process everything according to our will to receive, and how this causes suffering for us. And I understand the point in the heart, and I have learned where our true point of freedom exists in selecting an environment. But I suppose I would like a little more clarification on what it is I am to do in my day-to-day life. For instance, when I desire something and I receive it, should I receive the pleasure with the intention that it is fulfilling the Creator's intention to bestow, or is that view too corporeal? So, how do we go about this?
The question is, so what are we going to do in our day-to-day lives when we've got a bunch of desires to fulfill? So what are we going to do? Well, first of all, don't hold back. Okay, it's a bad move. What we don't do in Kabbalah is really restrict the desire. What we're trying to do is get an understanding of the desire. All right? And I think the most important point here is, when we try to bestow to the Creator, there's a specific way of getting there. All right? Actually, we can actually just do a little drawing about that. As you know, we're living, probably you guys drew this a lot, we're living in this world. All right? In our five senses. And the Creator is up here, which is above this thing called the Mahsam. Now, in order for me to bestow to the Creator, I've actually got to stick my head up to the other side, because we don't really know what bestowal is, but we want to learn what bestowal is, and we can only learn it from the real bestower himself, which is the Creator. So you might be thinking, well, what are we doing with the group then? What are we doing studying if we're going to learn straight from the Creator about how to bestow and what to bestow and how to do all these things? Well, there's a little trick, and it's called, from bestowing to others, we come to bestow upon the Creator. So what we actually have to discover while we're studying Kabbalah, as you mentioned earlier, is about the choice of environment. Why do I need this specific environment? In order to actually start practicing bestowal. In our day-to-day lives, we divide our lives into two. Okay, so I've got my normal day-to-day life. I go to work. I've got my family and my friends outside of Kabbalah, which my work colleagues or other friends and family, people who are not dealing with Kabbalah. So towards them, I act just like I would normally do when I wasn't studying Kabbalah. All right. Second thing is, well, I'm studying Kabbalah and how to arrange myself so I could advance spiritually. And that's, like you rightfully said, to have a good environment, to surround myself with things that help me develop in that aspect. Just like in anything else. In life, if we want to be a football player, we go and hang out with football players and we do football, don't we? So if I want to study Kabbalah and advance in Kabbalah, what I've got to do is I've got my friends, I've got the books, I've got the lessons. So I surround myself with those tools in order to advance in spirituality. In our day-to-day work of spiritual development, I can't bestow to the Creator because I don't know Him and I don't sense Him. But I have my friends around me. I can definitely and surely bestow upon them. But what can I bestow upon my friends? What do they have that I don't have? Or what they don't have that I have that I can bestow? Well, we act in mutual bestowal towards the goal. If you know, and I know, and Asaf knows, and all our friends who study with us know that the purpose of creation is to come to bestowal, then we can do a little trick among ourselves, like kids play in the kindergarten or like children play games in order to grow up. We can, amongst each other, start to play a little game. It means I'm going to help you, you're going to help me, we're all going to help Asaf, everybody's going to help everybody else, and we're going to start to bestow to each other. And bestowing to each other means that we're going to help each other attain the purpose of life. Okay? And that's how we start to bestow in our world here. And hopefully, through this practice, through this game, we'll begin to come to some specific discernments, feelings and sensations that are going to give me an idea about what real bestowal is and what isn't. Actually, the Creator, the attribute of bestowal and love, will start to then surface. It will start to come alive as we interact in this game. Exactly like how kids grow. All right? So the best thing to do if you want to bestow and advance in spirituality is to start playing this game with your friends. And that's the best way to go.
Okay, great. We have a question, Olivia from Israel, and actually many people ask this question. I remember stumbling upon this a couple of times. I think it came up in the forum as well. What determines that one will have a point in the heart? Why is it given to only certain people, and it seems at least that to certain people it is not given? What's the whole deal with the point in the heart?
Well, certainly everybody has a point in the heart, all right? Maybe the question, a right question is this actually: why are some people awakened and others are not? That's actually what the question is, because everybody has a point in the heart, and as many texts state, all shall know me from the youngest to the old, and the whole world belongs to me, and all the people shall come to me, and so on. There's many texts. So it all talks about the whole of humanity. So everybody has a point in the heart, that's for sure. So the right question here is, actually from Olivia, which is a nice question, is why do some people wake up and some don't? Well, we don't know. That's the truth, okay? We don't know why some people wake up early and some people don't, why some people have an aspiration for spirituality and some people don't. We don't know how the whole system works. What we can tell you, and that's what we learn from Kabbalists, is that the whole of reality actually is one big desire, all right? And we, as humanity, are all in it. And if you look at a lot of scientific articles today, a lot of scientific proven facts in biology, nature, botany, yeah. You'll see that the whole of reality in terms of still, vegetative, animate are all connected. We're all connected, actually. And with every fourth person in the world, let's say this is Olivia here, all right? The scientists are saying every fourth person that we're connected to actually connects us to everybody, all right? let's say Olivia knows 4 people. Okay? And through those 4 people, you end up being connected to 7 billion people around the world. Okay, now some people have awakened and some others haven't, but that's not really our problem. Okay, we don't know. What we can do, though, act with what we do know. And if I have an aspiration to become spiritual, to bestow, to really find out what my purpose in life is, and to really attain my purpose in life, then what I can do is get together with the same kind of people in order to help others. All right? So this is actually very related to the question I just answered a minute ago. Who was that person who answered?
Before that was Enrique.
Enrique
Ruiz.
asked, how can I bestow? Well, I said to Enrique, well, we can start in the group. Now, as you develop in the group, who are we going to bestow to? We're going to bestow to the whole of humanity, aren't we? This is also what we do as a group. We publish books, scientific books as well, not just about Kabbalah, but about also integral society, how the whole of society is connected to each other, and why we need to treat each other with mutual consideration, because the whole of nature works on a simple law of mutual consideration. Of course, we don't tell the masses about Kabbalah, but we tell them about the laws of nature, which is exactly what we're learning in Kabbalah as well. So it's not a lie, or it's not anything different. How we wake up and who wakes up and who doesn't really is not something we can take into calculation until we understand the whole of nature, we understand the whole of this system. All right? And we can only really understand this whole system once we attain the whole system. Therefore, it's a very nice question. I'm afraid we're not given much answers about that. In fact, Baal HaSulam also asks this question in one of his writings. He says, why I have been chosen and I have attained and others haven't, I have got no idea. Okay? Because he says the generation is ready, and why the Creator chose me and awoke me to tell this wisdom to humanity and not somebody else. He also doesn't know. So we don't know, but hopefully when we get attainment, we shall.
Another analogy that Rav Lightman uses to also explain this is that, we're like cells in a body, but some cells, how come is it that some cells belong to the brain and some belong to the heart and some belong to the kidneys and some... So everyone has a certain role, that's for sure, and everyone in the general, if we think of the whole of humanity as this one collective body that is kind of like waking up from its unconscious state. So we don't know what parts wake up first, but those with the point that we don't know why specifically, certain organs wake up first, but those with the points in the hearts are like analogous to those that kind of have a role in terms of waking up the other parts. So, there's a responsibility that comes with it, with that point in the heart.
Absolutely. All right. So, and absolutely one more thing is that a point in the heart can awaken in anyone. Okay, so there's a lot of Kabbalistic texts who talk about specific things, but the dot in the heart basically can be anyone from anywhere around the world. That's why we have so many friends from all around the world, and B'nai Baruch is a global group. So we've got friends from, New Zealand to Timbuktu, from Chile to China. So anyone can awaken, we just don't know who it is that's going to wake up first. At the end of the day, the whole of humanity has to come to a level of perfection. And even if one of us, from the 7 billion people, hasn't come to that point of perfection, the rest of us won't feel perfection either. We'll always have something lacking, all right?
Yeah, actually, in relation to the process that the whole of humanity is going through, Pam Parker is saying that he watched some Kabbalah show that we have with Rav Lightman, where he showed a great concern for our immediate future. And he says, if Kabbalah is preparing me spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, then what about the physical world? I mean, it sounds like Pam is a bit worried. He says, should we store food, water, etc.? In general, our civilization is so close to collapsing. What should our mindset be about all of this?
You're absolutely correct. we've come to a global situation, a bit of a hiccup, which is really a bit of a dilemma for everyone. Okay, our global situation right now is a collapse in everything we've got. Our economy, as you know, is not going well at all. The whole world is interconnected. Nobody knows how to get out of it. And the question is, how can we get out of it? And we understand that we can't really. We've come to a new level in our human development, in our way of life. The world is round and we're all living under the same sky. And one guy from India can change things in Russia, and one guy in Europe can influence things in South America, and an African guy can influence things in America. We've come to such a connected state, which is actually what I've just drawn here. Humanity has come to such a state that we're all inside this network. And if in this network we don't function properly, we have waves, all right? And those waves are not felt very good. That's why we've got global crisis, economic crisis, social crisis, education crisis, violence, everything, okay? All kinds of crises you could possibly think about, we have. On the one hand, that's awful. On the other hand, it's absolutely fantastic. Because without a crisis in life, we can't really advance. And if you look at children as well, if they don't have a problem, they've got nothing to do. They can't develop a mind unless they've got some problem to solve. That's why we give them so many problems. And this is actually what life is giving us as well. So in order for us to develop further, the life, nature, or the creator gives us a bit of a drama here. So it's actually very important how we relate to that. And what we need to be really concerned about is our relation to the current crisis and about how we can solve it. Now, humanity generally has no idea, has no clue, because they think they're doing something in this world. However, the people with a point in the heart, and we're studying Kabbalah, and we're studying the laws of nature, we understand that there's a purpose to life. And we understand that that purpose needs to be achieved and that our life is pushing us in order to get there. So if the rest of humanity doesn't really understand that, the guys who understand have to tell the guys who don't understand. All right? And that's how our approach to life should be. This is why, as B'nai Baruch, we do our utmost effort to disseminate this wisdom as much as we can to those people who have got points in the heart. And as all of us who do have points in the heart, we also work really, really hard in order to tell the 99% or the other people in the world who haven't really woken up, who don't have a desire for spirituality, that in order to get out of this global crisis, we need to come to a state where we consider other people in life, which is called mutual responsibility, that everybody actually influences everybody. So in order for us to all get along well together as an organization, we're also acting with other organizations to enlighten humanity, as you might say, that in order to continue our life, we need to come to a mutual responsibility. We need to come to a phase where we change our education system from competitive wreckage to cooperative understanding and cooperative development. So we can all develop together and live together. All right? Because if some people are dying from hunger in Africa, that's going to actually affect everyone. Because now in Europe and in America, we've got a lot of economic crisis. And now what's that turning into is that those countries are going to start to, well, what do you do with immigrants when you've got an economic collapse? You turn against them. And where do those immigrants really come from? They come from countries who don't have food, they don't have jobs, food, and so on. So we see that every country is affecting everyone in this whole system. In order for us to get out of the crisis, the best way to do that is to take responsibility and act towards that. So what we can do, Pam, is actually participate in those activities so we can actually raise humanity to a new level of understanding. We have a lot of activities, not just Kabbalah, but also scientific conferences, social activities with a lot of other organizations that we try to disseminate a new understanding about life so that we can all come to some kind of a mutual agreement that our lives cannot carry on this way, because if it does, we're really going to come to a terrible state. So there is hope, because from crisis people will ask, people will question, they'll question the system, they'll question life, and from there what we need to do is to be really ready with material and the willingness to help them understand what the problem is, so we can pass on a solution. Have I missed anything there?
Lara from Houston, actually, to follow up on that, Lara from Houston just added a question specifically about this, which I think is worthy of addressing. She says, but if it's a part of creation for us to come to perfection, then will the crisis we talk about, won't it correct itself? Won't it fix itself?
Absolutely it will, but there's a bit of a problem with that. If I leave my kids alone to grow up, okay, he's going to or she's going to have a pretty tough childhood, isn't she? I mean, if I just leave her alone, don't tell her anything about life, don't raise her, she's going to learn everything the hard way, all right? She won't know what's right, she won't know what's good for her, she won't know anything. So she'll do everything that's absolutely wrong in order to discover that that thing is dangerous, and God forbid anything can happen. I mean, just think about a child who's going to stick his fingers into an electric socket. You see that and you say to yourself, well, she'll just know not to touch that again. I mean, she could end up dead in the process, okay, because she'll get a nasty electric shock. So what we try to do is not to leave things for him to fix things up, okay? Because when he does, unfortunately, he's got a bit of a strong hand. Okay, so what we try to do with everybody else and the rest of humanity is to really cushion that a little bit. The reason behind that is the Creator also has a dilemma. Okay, on the one hand, he wants to bring us to perfection in a nice way. On the other hand, he can't just reveal himself and say, hey guys, I created you, I'm Mr. Nice Guy, and let's get it on, because we'll just suck his blood. And that's not what really he wants. He wants us to be like him, so we don't feel shame and we don't feel less and we don't feel bad about ourselves by receiving things from him. So he has a dilemma, all right? So he wakes up the people with a dot in the heart and he says, guys, help the others, do me a favor, you know, raise them up a little bit. And that's what we have to do. Otherwise, humanity will go through constant suffering, which will be horrific if we don't help them out. Okay, so there's a lot of responsibility that comes with being a parent. Just like we have responsibility towards our children, all right, we need to have that kind of responsibility towards humanity. Otherwise, they'll go through suffering. And just like we'd hate to see our own children go through suffering, we should really have an understanding and an approach, actually, to that kind of event if the whole of humanity goes through that, because they went through First World War, they went through Second World War. There's no telling what they might do, and with the weapons we have in this era, anything is possible, and it's not going to be fun and games. All right, so that's exactly why we don't leave things in the hands of the Creator.
Yeah, we spoke before about when we answered the question about what to do in day-to-day life and how to kind of bring the study into it. And there's another question here from some email address that is unclear exactly. Prima Di Mauro, maybe I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. And the question is relating to what we said about that was, why should we not also practice I guess practice unity and love of friends and reaching the Creator through that, the quality of bestowal, with our outside Kabbalah friends? Why should we divide it to my Kabbalah friends and outside Kabbalah friends? What is this whole thing about? This is also another question, actually, that was raised now, but many friends, many students are asking about this. They need to understand the differences here. What is happening here?
All right, this is a dilemma for all of us. Okay, when we started Kabbalah, we want to just get one of those loudspeakers and says, guys, I've found it. Okay, but it's not a good approach, and I'll tell you why. First of all, your friends will think you've gone absolutely nuts. Okay, and they'd be right. First of all, you're coming up to them with something they probably don't know what it is. They have no idea, and they didn't ask for it in the first place. Now, Kabbalah, if you go onto Google and search for Kabbalah, you will get everything from holy water, from Madonna to red strings to black magic, okay? And they'll think you're really gone mad. And in fact, we know and you know that you haven't. You've just been looking for the purpose of life and you discovered it. Therefore, if you share that with people outside of the group, let's say, if you go to your work and say, hey guys, you want to study Kabbalah with me, let's read a couple of articles, and you open up an article, all of a sudden it's talking about, I don't know, in Shamati, for example, I don't know, the land of Israel. And they got no idea what you're talking about. And this and God chose you amongst all of the people and things like that. And your friends are going, what have you been talking about? What are you doing? Where have you been? All right, because they won't understand. The whole reason that you guys are given a fundamental course is actually how to relate to all these Kabbalistic texts correctly. And if you go and talk to them and say, oh, come on, let's talk about Kabbalah, I discovered something really great. First of all, they won't understand because they haven't gone through the fundamentals. All right? Just like we can't give a 5-year-old kid an education about sex because he's not ready, she's not ready, they don't know what you're talking about. You can't say all of a sudden, right, you're 5 years old, now we're going to have sexual education. They're like, well, what's this all about? Okay? So first of all, there's no need to confuse the minds of others. It's not just bad for you, it's bad for them as well. That is one of the primary reasons we don't. Second of all, I mentioned just a minute ago that we also talk to people about mutual responsibility. That has no Kabbalistic terms in it. So about those things you can. What is that? Well, it's like, in order to get along with each other, we have to start thinking about each other. And this concept of mutual responsibility is not a Kabbalistic term. All right? It's actually how we were raised. If you think about it, our parents raised us in a way, say, look, be good to other people. Why are they constantly telling me to be good to other people when I'm looking at the grown-ups and seeing that they're bad to other people? Because when they raise us, as a parent, instinctively they understand that if I'm good to other people, I won't get harmed. Can you feel the trick here? When we're children, our parents teach us the correct things. And when we grow up, we seemingly do something completely different. Okay? Another influence of the environment. Because we see violence on the streets, we see violence on TV, movies, and we copy that. Right? So, but we can talk to other people about being mutually responsible and how that mutual responsibility is good for that individual person, not just for everyone, because other people don't really think about the welfare and the benefits of other people. A person just wants to have a good life, so he thinks about himself, and rightfully so. So to those people who are not in the group, we talk to them about things like being mutually responsible so that our life can be good in this life, okay, while we're living here. Because if we're mutually responsible, we're mutually connected, and we won't get harmed ourselves, and we can all have a goody-goody life. So if you want to talk to your friends about that, you should talk to your friends about that. And in fact, where's he from again? We don't know?
We don't know. It was just an email.
All right, because we've got a lot of friends from all around the world who actually participate in these social events around the world who promote social responsibility.
Actually, CA probably California
or Canada. You're in luck. We've got friends all over there who actually participate in these events, social events within the society, to promote mutual responsibility, mutual consideration. Because in these moments of crisis, what's really going to get us out of this crisis and make us move forward in a smooth way is this social unity, mutual responsibility.
Yeah. So,
in fact, Asaf just gave a very interesting course on that on Saturday, and I was privileged enough to watch it, and I translated some of that course. It was very, very nice, and I must admit, I'm just dying to get some of the links, because on Sunday I couldn't watch the Sunday ones because I was at work, so I will be watching those as well.
Yeah, yeah. I would just add that maybe it takes a while for you guys to kind of get used to. It seems like many things, wait a minute, I'm in Kabbalah, I have this point in the heart, there's lots of people around me who don't feel what I feel. On the other hand, we're all going through this global situation that is kind of like what we call a global crisis, verging on collapse. All our systems are going, in a downward kind of spiral. And I can't really talk to others about Kabbalah, but I do need to kind of promote this idea of a loving society, because there's simply no other way to survive. And it seems like many things, perhaps, but you're just gonna have to work with it a little bit, and then see how gradually these things fall into place. What happens is that all those things that you hear in the lessons, that you read from the text, gradually you begin to see them. You'll open the news and you'll see how you have a very deep perception of it on the one hand that tells you clearly how nature is kind of orchestrating this whole global situation that humanity is going through. And even by what you're reading in the news or seeing on TV, you can see the effects of that. On the one hand. On the other hand, you'll also get a better grasp on what you can do on a personal level on a day-to-day basis with even people who have no clue about Kabbalah and no relation to it and no interest in it at all. And that is this promoting this new idea of a new environment, a new integral, globally aware, mutually responsible kind of environment that promotes new values, which is at the root of a new system that has to be built these days.
Guys, it's really not complicated. Very, very simple, okay? Asaf is right. It needs a bit of digesting, that's all. But the system is very simple, all right? Here is the Creator, okay? He wants to bring me up here to his state. Now, he tells me, well, he doesn't, but the Kabbalists say, look, my place here is love, perfection, and bestowal, okay? Where you will lack nothing. I can't show you myself directly because you will just want everything from me in a selfish way. So in order for you to develop bestowal, I've created people. These people are your friends in the group who all got a dot in the heart. Alright? And there's also people in the world who don't have a dot in the heart, but you live with them. Alright? They're the society. You live with these guys. You can't chuck them away. You can't throw them away. You can't kill them. Unfortunately, they don't have a dot in they haven't awakened yet. They've got a dot in the heart, but they haven't awakened. And they're going through suffering. Okay? If you look at them, they're going through wars, financial crisis. They're losing their homes. They're losing their jobs. They're going through suffering. In order for you to get to me in bestowal, here, I want you to practice that bestowal. So how are you going to do that? Well, I brought you to the group. And from the group, you can learn bestowal. Here, you can learn how to bestow. Learn bestowal. Okay? Develop a sense of love. Develop mutual responsibility. Okay? Mutual responsibility. That everybody depends on everybody. If I develop this ability here in my friends, and I look at the rest of the world and see them suffering, then I need to say to myself, well, wait a minute, I can't just live on a mountaintop and have a great life and let these guys suffer. All right? So what am I going to do? I'm going to say, wait a minute, guys, we've attained something really well. And we must tell these other people so they don't suffer either. Okay? But what am I going to tell them? That's the question. What am I going to tell them? If a person is suffering in life, he's lost his home, he's lost his job, he's divorced, maybe he's going through some sickness, he doesn't want to hear about spiritual things because he's worried about his day-to-day bread. He's worried about his day-to-day life. Okay? So we can't go up to him and say Kabbalah. He's going to say, what are you talking about? I don't have a job. I don't have a place to live. I don't know how to look after myself. How the hell am I going to get out of this mess? And you talking about some la-la land about spirituality. He won't listen. And he's rightfully so. Neither would we have. So what we tell other people is, if we want to live properly, we need to be mutually connected. We need to be mutually responsible. Remember, it's the same principle in spirituality, but I just don't tell them it's spirituality. In life, if I want to be connected, if I want to have a good relationship in my office, I have to get along with people. It's just basic principles of life. If I want to have a good family relationship, I need to be good towards them. Okay? So this is not complicated at all. Actually, it's a good thing we're having this question and answer session, and it's going into this direction simply because of globalization. As students of Kabbalah, we really need to keep an eye and ear out about what's happening in the world, because we're supposed to have that perspective towards the purpose of creation. So every change in society, every change in the world, I've got to be attentive to it. I can't just close my eyes and close myself into a room with books and friends and have a limited life. I won't get the whole picture. Remember, the whole idea of Kabbalah is to attain the whole of reality. So I've got to put myself really out there, okay? And it's not complicated at all, so don't stress out, don't panic. It's really a piece of cake, spirituality, really.
Fabrizio from Singapore, he has a question that he's really trying to ask, I think, from the Facebook group and now again. And I think we should really answer it. It's a good question. He says, while studying, how can we continually and carefully monitor that our intention is correct? That is, to attract the upper light rather than fulfilling a desire for knowledge. And he has a second part of it, but that's big enough to start with.
Okay, keeping intention. There's a nice little clip in the Perception of Reality or Perceiving Reality site. Okay? And in one of those clips, it says, how can a woman asks the question, how can I stop all this wanderings in my mind? And a nice question for that is, well, I'm not responsible for all the thoughts that come into my mind, am I? Because anything can come into my mind at any time. But what I am responsible for is choosing a right environment. If I want to keep my intention in the right way, I need to be in an environment where people are thinking about that. Once I'm in that environment, the rest depends on only one thing, and that's a big effort. All right. Guys, I can only do my best, but I can do my best if I'm in a right environment. Okay? How can I do it in order not to fulfill knowledge, but to really want to attract the All-Makif? Well, for that, I really actually need to have a lack for it. I need to actually start to see that I need inner change. And how am I going to get inner change? We are not capacitated to change ourselves, because the Creator created us, and only He can do that flip. We just think we can change. But at the end of the day, none of us can change ourselves. So we've got this nice little tool called All-Makif, which comes to us through the study, which is the light. Okay? And for this light to come, I've got to build a desire. I have to want it. All right? And that can only be if I'm in a right environment, giving my best effort. Now, to get out of that intention is not a bad thing, because we're all falling. My mind is going here, my mind is going there. But the environment, what's the environment going to do? It's going to put me back on track. My mind's going to go there. Oops, I'm going to be put back on track. I'm constantly going to go through these deviations, right? Especially at the beginning. All right? I'm trying to get connected. That's my intention, right? Straight to the goal. What's going to happen is I'm going to start deviating. But as I study, that thing is going to get really sharper. Okay? Because I'm going to start getting used to it. I'm going to start catching myself. And it's going to be faster and faster and faster. It's going to be bang, bang, bang. Until I'll get to a point where I just think about the intention. And I start actually living in that intention. And that's really exciting, because we're normally used to living in our desire. And then you start living in your intention. And that's a whole different ballgame, and it's a whole different sensation. It's really beautiful, actually. What was the second part of that question?
The second part was also, as the Creator is currently concealed, how can we measure our progress?
You can only measure it with the tool that He gave us, which is the group. All right? The group. One question I need to ask myself. I want to come to bestow. What am I doing for it? What am I doing in order to bestow? Very simple question. If I want to advance in, let's say, biology, well, what am I doing in order to advance in biology? Same thing here. If I want to advance in spirituality, what am I doing? All right? And you've got some really nice tools, very practical, very useful, and we like to call them the Rav, the books, okay, and the group. And when all these things come together, we attract something called the light, because our intention is in order to bestow to the Creator. All right, so I'm using all these things in order to get that light from the Creator. Guys, it's really a piece of cake. All right, seriously, sometimes you delve into the books and you think, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? But really, this science couldn't be more easier, because it's really practical. All right, it's really practical science, and it's really a piece of cake. Once you start to get into it, you'll begin to feel the light. Okay, the light is the most difficult thing to explain in Kabbalah, but once you get into it, show a bit of patience and a bit of determination, a bit of how do you call it, stubbornness. Okay, and you'll get that strength from the friends. If you just do that a little bit, right, you begin to feel the light working. And once you feel it working, things clarify. And once you've got clarification, then you can move on a bit more and a bit more and a bit more. So the most important thing in spirituality is to actually have a bit of patience, all right? But it's really, really a piece of cake.
Argo from Greece, I think he asked the question, how's it, and I think a lot of students have this question, how does this all, when we say group, and we understand there is some physical setting of a group, but there's also a virtual setting of a group, so how does this all work in a virtual group? And also, let's cover the whole topic, like what are the differences or not differences, and how will when we say group, how does it work? Virtually, physically?
First of all,
what's a group?
First of all, what's a group? Okay, that's the first question. A group are like-minded people who are trying to get to the same objective. And our objective is to come to bestow. So I am now living, like you're living in Greece, right? I used to live in Australia. We've got another great friend from Greece here called Marcos. He used to live in Australia as well. He was living up in Brisbane. I was in Sydney. We're all virtual, right? None of us had a group. We didn't have a group. So what are we going to do? We're going to stop spirituality? Certainly not, okay? The whole idea of internet is actually to get us all connected, all right? Humanity is evolving, is developing in a really, really interesting way if you look at life. On the one hand, we're developing so much technology to get connected, right? And on the other hand, our nature is so much against connection that we're getting disconnected from other people. You know, we don't even talk to people anymore. We say, look, send me an email or send me an SMS. Don't even call me, just send me an SMS. All right? So humanity's development is really, really interesting. On the one hand, we've got all these tools to get connected, and on the other hand, we don't want to get connected with anyone. We just want people to leave us alone. Virtual group is actually a group. We are all now studying together Kabbalah. We are all studying how we can advance towards spirituality. And this actually action of studying to get to this bestowal is a thing that attracts light on us. So whether you're sitting there in Greece on your own, or whether you're with a bunch of friends, I don't know, in a group, doesn't really matter at this point in time, because we're studying material here. So virtual or not virtual, it's not a problem. And we have virtual groups in Europe. Actually, we've got the European virtual group. It's very, you can join. It's not a problem at all. And people actually get together on Friday evenings, and I had the privilege of joining a few of them myself. where people get together on a Friday night, they read a little bit things together, they listen to a few songs, and that's it. You know, they get together. It's the whole idea of getting our thoughts, our desires and intentions together. If you just take out the body out of the picture, what are we actually? A man or a woman, when I say man, I'm talking about a human, right? A human is basically comprised of what? Desires, thoughts. Oops, thought you have to excuse my spelling, it's awful. Desires, thoughts, and intentions. That's all we really are. All right? This is it. That's me. Okay, and that's everyone. There you go. Big head, small body. Because that's what's really going on inside of us. And what we really want to do is actually bring those elements together. Our thoughts, desires, and intentions. And as long as they're together, what difference does it make if I'm virtually anywhere on the planet? We've got people in China, in India. They study on their own because they don't have a group. But their thoughts and their desires and their aspirations are all in the group. They're all united with everyone in the same group. What's our direction? And our direction is to bestow to the Creator. So through bestowal, we want to get there. So we want to come to bestowal. And that's the most important thing. Okay? And if our thoughts and intentions are in that way, our actions are going to be in that way as well. What am I going to do? I'm going to connect with people on the internet. I'm going to connect with friends on the internet. And we're all going to get connected together in a certain way, in our thoughts and desires. However, having said that, put that aside. A physical group, although you may not have one, you may need to, well, you should, get in touch with one occasionally, because we're still living in our five senses, right? So the body, because it's still in the five senses, it still needs to have contact. Okay, it's like I can't have a virtual girlfriend. Okay, so it's the same thing. You've got a virtual girlfriend, she's very nice, and you're thinking whatever, okay? Same here. At the end of the day, we need to have some kind of contact with these people so we can actually get some kind of an impression, some kind of a sensation that we can really analyze when I'm in touch with people. For that, never despair, because if you've got problems, we've got solutions, and that's called a congress. Okay? Congress. Or we have other events as well, where people actually come together. All right? Congresses and events from all over the world. They sometimes happen in Europe. Well, every year there's bound to be one in Europe, in America, in Russia. There's just congresses all the time. Okay? And let's say there's a congress in America and you can't go to that congress. Don't fear, because there's a lot of groups in Europe. All right, there's a really, really lovely group in Romania. There's a great bunch of guys in Bulgaria, which are very close to Greece. You're on the borderline. There's some really, really nice friends over the border in Turkey that you can pop by to. So there's always a group that will connect to that big congress virtually, and you can just go to that small group that's connecting virtually, because at the end of the day, you just want to get a sensation of being with these people. All right? So there's a lot of activities and there's a lot of opportunities in order to get virtual and physical and get it connected together without going through any dilemmas at all. All right? So I don't think it's a problem at all. The most important thing here is to be connected in any way possible that you can, whatever your situation is. And if you do wish to go to any of those congresses, just follow the site. You're more than welcome to come. All the friends come. In America, we had a great congress with a lot of people from actually virtual groups came, and that was really amazing. A lot of people from all around the world who were studying virtually with us came to the New Jersey Congress, and it was just an amazing congress.
Yeah, actually, on that note, first, actually, I'd like to maybe just to kind of recap what we just said now, which is really, it's good to kind of keep it in mind and get used to it. It's very important. So, to recap, when we say group in Kabbalah, what we mean is really the unity as Mutlu put it, of our desires, thoughts, and intentions, or the unity of our points in the hearts, our mutual aspirations towards spirituality, same thing. We're talking about the unity of our interior. Okay, not our faces, our bodies, or languages, or, hugging each other necessarily means that we're hugging each other internally. We're talking about inner unity. That's what we mean by group. However, because we start our climbing towards spirituality from the lowest corporeal, superficial, external perception of reality called this world, hugging each other and sweating with each other physically also helps us uniting our aspirations and common desires.
Now, when you say sweating, we're dancing a lot, that's why. All right. The group hugs is not a bad idea. Right?
And that's why we do have these conventions or congresses, however you want to call them, and we try, as Mutlu said, we really try to have them everywhere in the world and all the time. I think there's almost no, a month or 2 months that pass by without some event, at least a one-day event, a two-day event that is somehow happening in some place around the world. And even if you're not in that place, you can come to a group that has a mirror event. Mm-hmm. And that's the way to connect. So even if you're most of the time virtually, that occasional physical contact gives you, kind of grounds back your correct approach to the group and helps you build your interior connection based on that, from that physical level of connection time and time again, and you can kind of measure yourself that way, and you can absolutely advance spiritually that way.
Absolutely.
So on that note, I'd like to mention that we have events coming up. There is one in Texas. If any one of you studying in the Learning Center is welcome. There are going to be mostly graduate students there. You can absolutely come as well. Anyone who's in, it's going to be in Austin or next to Austin. But if you're in the area and it works for you, that's June 16. There's going to be an event in Texas. It's a one-day event. It's a packed day. It's kind of a packed day with special lessons that have workshops as well. You're not still familiar with this kind of setting. These are lessons where it's not just a lesson in Q&A, but it's also at some point in the lesson we break into circles, into groups, and we have some guided discussions that help us find what we call this integral field, this common field between us. Very, very special experiences.
Which is really practical Kabbalah. When you actually begin to feel other people around you. It's a very, very special workshop. It's something very, very interesting. I'm sure you'll love it.
So I really recommend, if you have an opportunity to come there and it works for you, June 16, it's going to be in Austin, Texas. Go to texasisone.info. I'll mention this URL again before we conclude the lesson, but it was just the right moment to mention this to you because we were just talking about these events. So this is one event, and on June 23, Rav Lightman is going to come to Miami, actually, and there's going to be a 1 or a 2-day event there. I think a 2-day event, as far as I understand, that is going to happen there. Or certainly 1-day event for sure. A 2-day, we'll see how it happens with the schedule there. But so KabbalahMiami.org is the URL for all the details. So if you're around Texas this month or around Miami this month, you do have an opportunity for an event of connection to practice what we're talking about in a physical setting as well. So, as we said, guys, the opportunities are all over the place. If you want to advance, you'll find the opportunity.
Right.
There's another thing, sort of, not really a question, but some comment from Jason that I'd like to relate to. When we were talking about how we have to use what we call the 3 components of the spiritual environment, the Rav, the group, and the books, and really through using them correctly, we now just talked extensively about what the group is, and we understand that what the books are. The books are really, it's not about the text that's written there. The books are what? They're descriptions of higher states, of spiritually advanced states, meaning states of me already in spirituality, already in connection with other souls, with other points in the hearts, already sensing the Creator. This is the sources, the books. Kabbalists write them to us not so that we can gain intellect or be smarter or just know about these things in general. Yeah, so there's some spiritual state where you're connected with other souls. Fine. No, the point of reading these books is in order to try to put it in a humane, non-spiritual words, to try to sympathize, to empathize with what they write. Simple as that. And by doing so, we actually, it's another means to provoke our desire, to amplify our desire, and that is what we call drawing the surrounding light. There's nothing to draw here physically. It's not a magnet or, or some sort of a rope that your desire is actually the rope with which you catch that influence. So the sources is another component. And the Rav, what it really means is that even when you're not in a situation where you're studying and there's a teacher in front of you, a Rav means that there's always a higher degree, your corrected, more elevated, more advanced degree, and the Creator is working through that, from that degree towards your current degree to pull you up. So all those things together, and how it reflects in the most in a simple way, in a corporeal way, is what we call is that situation of having someone that guides you, that teaches you, and so using all those things, the effort that we make is in order to do what? Is in order to draw that light that reforms. That is what we do at the end of the day. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how hard we try to connect with each other, how hard we try to really desire what we can get out of the books, or really connect to the Rav and to the upper level of development. What needs to happen is that from all these efforts, we'll get enough sensitivity for the light that reforms to influence us. That is the only way to advance spiritually. Now, one more second, just to relate to what Jason was saying. So it does require some efforts to begin to feel that feedback. All of a sudden, that clarity that comes, or that it can appear in different ways, but it takes some effort to get to get that to happen to you. And Jason says, well, okay, I think I feel that light, but I kind of fall back. And you know what? That I wanted to touch upon this, because that's actually correct. It doesn't matter to what extent you actually feel it and whether it's actually accurate or not. And it's like when we start developing, we go through many situations where we think we advance. It doesn't really matter right now. What matters is that if you feel some inner feedback, it doesn't really matter if you call it in the right terms right now, if you actually feel what you call the light, yes or no. If you feel some fluctuations with regards to how much you understand the material, how much you feel the material. When we say group and we talk about that, and all of a sudden you feel something in relation to that, and then you don't. And you go up and down like that all the time. That's exactly the progress that we're talking about. That's exactly the kind of flirt that you have with the light, or with the Creator, or with that higher degree that is pulling you towards it. And it's supposed to happen that way. And that is exactly the difference between advancing linearly, as in everything else in our world. You study more, you study 1 year of biology, so you're 1 year smart. You study 2 years, you're 2 years smart. You study 3 years, and so on. And that's how you gain wisdom in this world. You gain more and more knowledge, and the more you fill up your brain cells, that's how smart you are, and that's how advanced you are. In Kabbalah, it doesn't work that way. In Kabbalah, you have to constantly build your own vessel for the fulfillment, meaning that you get something, and then what you discover is another portion of the desire that has to be tuned and aimed and directed toward the quality of bestowal. And that way you constantly build your lack, or we call it deficiency, we call it the desire, basically, your vessel for spirituality. And the process feels like ups and downs and fluctuations, and actually it grows more and more, the gap between the ups and downs grows more and more extreme, and it becomes more and more of an adventure. And that is actually a way for you to begin measuring your progress. And it's they say about Rabbi Shimon, who wrote the book of Zohar, that before feeling the 105th degree of spirituality, the final correction, what he felt was actually the minus 155th degree.
124th.
Yeah, or
before
he
got to the last level, he felt the absolute opposite of being minus that level. So it's like feeling minus infinity.
Yeah. So, good observation, Jason.
Absolutely. And guys, in our world also we develop like that. Einstein has there's a very nice, how do you say, animation that Einstein is writing on the blackboard, a bunch of stuff. You look at the blackboard, he's filled it all with formulas, and he goes, right here, at this point, at this moment, a miracle occurs. Because he's gone through so much effort, and he's gone through so much effort trying to feel something, trying to understand something. At that point, you just get stuck, but the light works, and that's called a miracle. Any other questions there?
Yeah, we have a question from Wally. I think that's really bugging Wally to know. What happens, basically the question is, what happens when the body dies? He phrases the question like this: when our consciousness leaves the physical body, meaning when the body dies, which world does our consciousness go to before it goes into another physical body? So maybe we should, it's the classic, confusion or issue of body and soul. Let's clarify that.
First of all, in Kabbalah, first of all, you're right, but we should start to change our look on how we treat our body and how we think and what we think it is. Okay, first of all, if we look at ourselves as just a desire to receive pleasure and fulfillment, and just look at that, you'll begin to soon separate your body from the desire. Because the reason we love the body so much is because we feel everything with its five senses. So we can't really get disconnected from it. When we die, if we haven't attained spirituality, if we haven't built that soul in addition to the body, then the only thing that remains in us is the subconscious from all our lives accumulated. That's why we have subconsciously inherent behavior. Subconsciously, we don't know why we do certain things that we do. Why? Because it comes from all the accumulation of our previous experiences. So think of it not like a body, but think of it like we're going through a bunch of experiences. Okay? And it's that experience that's actually a bit in the air. It's like knowledge. Right now, scientists are discovering that knowledge is not actually kept in our brain. It's kept in the air somewhere. It's like in the air, it floats, and that's why thoughts pass between people, and that's why the environment for us is very, very important, because I want to get the right thoughts from just being around there. Okay? So when the body dies, there's actually nothing really to talk about, and Kabbalah doesn't really talk about the body at all. It talks about the soul, and that's what we should be focusing on. If we just think of ourselves as a desire to receive, that wants fulfillment, okay, the thoughts, the desires, and the intentions as a separate thing to the body, it'll be much easier. The body is just there for us to give us this five senses so we can actually figure out a way to get out of it, because it's the lowest state possible. Now, what happens when you die? Like I said, the accumulation of everything that you went through goes into a state called subconscious. It's called impression. All right? So I've got a bunch of impressions that stay there with me. And actually, when those impressions have accumulated through all the life cycles, what wakes up? The dot in the heart wakes up. Okay? So all these impressions accumulated pushes the person to a certain level where he comes and asks a question about his life, and that's when the dot in the heart awakens as well. So what happens when our body dies? Well, nothing. It just rots in the grave. It's food for the worms, if you'd like to say, call it that way.
And On that,
and on that positive
on that
note,
positive note, we do have
we have a really nice clip prepared for you.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm not sure. I think I haven't played it this semester, and it's a really good clip. Even if I did, it's really worthwhile to watch it again, but I think I haven't. And it's actually about that point that the Mutlu was talking about somewhere in the beginning of the lesson, when we were talking about, how the Creator has a dilemma, and he can't just, you already understand by now that he can't just create a will to receive and fill it up, and that will to receive will then be like a robot, no independence, no awareness, no self-consciousness. And Rav Lightman goes into clarifying that dilemma of the Creator from his perspective, so to speak. Beautiful clip. Let's watch it. Try to feel it together. Use it as another means for uniting our points in the hearts. Let's watch it.
Sometimes you say that is desire, the word is desire, and sometimes you say this word has degree of love. What we have to understand?
The Creator is a force called bestowal and love. Because he is bestowal and love, he has the desire to express that bestowal and love. It's like we do towards someone we love. And there is great suffering for one who loves and is unable to give to the one he loves. It is great suffering, and it's much more than suffering of reception. It is written that more than the calf wants to suck, the cow wants to feed. This is something we can somewhat see in mothers towards their babies. So the Creator is a desire to give, to bestow, to love. And don't think it's not a need, but it's not a deficiency like ours, because it is a need that comes from wholeness. So he naturally creates the desire in order to fulfill it, in order to express his love towards it. But in order for us to understand him, how he's acting, in order to feel what he's giving to us, we must be like him in our development, in our qualities, in our height or status. This is why, although he did create within our will to receive all sorts of foundations to receive and to feel his love completely, there is still one missing element, that if we will not be independent, where it is our desire to feel his love, our desire to accept him as loving us, if it doesn't come of our own accord, then it's not love. It's like you can't buy love with money, right? You can use money in this world to buy different services. It's like you go to a barber, you pay for a haircut. You go to a hospital, you pay the people who treat you. You go to a restaurant, you pay to get food. All the people do it with all their heart because they love the money, not because they love you. So how do you make someone actually love you? Oh, that is something we just don't know in this world. Because true love only exists after many corrections, when a person is completely independent of the other. So how can we be independent of him? The Creator's dilemma is how to build us, how to create us, how to design us in a way that it is as though he is not the first cause. Meaning that I will relate to him in a way that I'm not dependent upon him, and along with it develop love towards him. And this is why we have to make an effort. And that effort is essentially to be exactly like Him in loving, giving, being independent, omnipotent, not reliant on anything. And this is it. This is what we attain. And we don't understand how unique is this process of development we go through. Well, the truth is that there are no words to describe these things because we don't know these discernments. We don't know what love is, what independence is. In our world, these things don't exist because everything here is in exchange for pleasure. When we raise ourselves above pleasure, that is when we begin to understand what it means to be independent, to be free. And as a result, there is an inspection or observation on all your discernments, on all your life. And then it takes on a whole different form of examination. What is the relationship and love and hate and each of our qualities and lust and honor and envy and connection and disconnection. All of that. When a person raises himself above the ego and becomes independent of it, this is the main thing here. We don't understand what independent means. Then you have a perspective that is as if with new eyes. You see things that you didn't think existed before. This new observation, this new ideology, if you will. And then you're in a new world.
And hoping to be in that new world. Now, this lesson was question and answers. From what I understand, your next lesson will also be questions and answers. So this is really a good opportunity for you to really think about things, okay? Think about why Kabbalah, why this. Think about all the things that you went through in this fundamental course and try to figure out the things that you haven't really clarified, all right? Things are not clear, things you've got questions about. It's very important to have questions when you're advancing because those questions actually give your understanding a new depth. And from that new depth, you'll begin to have more questions that are really more deep, more relevant, and you'll get to know yourselves more. So for the next lesson that we've got, it's very important that you guys prepare. Okay, preparation is very important, as you might have already heard. So think about what you'd like answered. These things are really for you to develop. And
and another recommendation on this is if you feel, even if you feel like, I'm not sure that's how you feel, but if you feel like you have no questions, go to the texts, go to the sources, anything from our site, from all our books, everything is there. You're already, I'm sure, familiar with it. And just start digging into the texts. You can also bring questions from there and tell me, hey, this point exactly, what does Baal Salam say here? What does the text says there? And so on. This will be very good as well. And coming with that desire to dig into the text, to see where it leads you to, will be a good tool for you as well. Before we conclude, a plus, if you just won't have questions, we'll just sit here for an hour and 15 minutes and we won't do anything. We'll just sit here and that's it. So we can read greetings in the beginning. That's always fun. But anyway, so let's just remind again that you do have an event on June 16 in Texas. All the details there, information for those who have an opportunity to go. TexasIs1.info. If you are in Miami on Saturday, June 23, that's exactly a week after. So we have week after week, we have these mini conventions, and Rav Lightman is going to be there in Miami. Go to KabbalahMiami.org for details on that one. And we'll also remind you that as we are finishing this semester next week, we're starting a new fundamental semester, and that will start on July the 11th, which means that if you do have friends with an interest in this, with some spark in them, some point in the heart, family, people you think could really be interested, you can, not in a forceful way, not in a pushy kind of way, you can offer them that, that you felt, if you felt that this course was valuable to you and that you've gained something from it, then you can offer it to those who you think have an interest in that. And the next semester will start on July the 11th. So we're waiting for your questions, and we'll see you next week.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.